67 miles from Pittsburgh lies the city of Johnstown, a small town built at the confluence of the Stony Creek River and the Little Conemaugh River into the Conemaugh River. However, what lies beneath the surface of the small town is a long history of resilience and a story of the power of Gilded Age figures. This is the story of the Great Flood of 1889, the Johnstown Flood. To help tell the story of the Johnstown Flood, I went to the Johnstown Flood Museum and spoke to an expert working at the museum about the city before the flood.
Okay, my name is Sue Coslow. I was born and raised in Johnstown. I worked at the Flood Museum since September of 2017. It was a very bustling city, very, very busy. Johnstown was the leader in steel production for a while, so they were working round the clock producing steel.
With the importance of steel to the city of Johnstown, it is no surprise that Andrew Carnegie was involved. To get to the bottom of his involvement in Johnstown, I spoke with a local Pittsburgh historian about the influence of Andrew Carnegie.
Felix Uracy. I've worked here for 17 years. Andrew Carnegie has a lot of influence, and there's influence that he has in the short term, and there's influence that he has in the long term. His short-term influence certainly is on the literal construction of the United States. And, no matter where you go, whether it be the Brooklyn Bridge or the Seattle Space Needle or the Panama Canal, you're going to find steel from Pittsburgh. Andrew Carnegie is responsible for making Pittsburgh what we think about when we think of it being the Steel City.
Carnegie believed it was part of the wealthy's role in society to provide charity, provide for their community, eventually creating a culture around that idea.
I think the other implication Andrew Carnegie has that maybe we don't consider so much is the role he has on philanthropy, and the fact that today you have so many people of such great wealth where there is an expectation that they are going to give that away, and in fact many of them either have or have pledged that they will. And that really starts from Andrew Carnegie, that tradition of philanthropy by people who have accumulated tremendous wealth and then have turned around to give most, if not all of it, away to charitable causes and organizations. And certainly we here in Pittsburgh are the benefactors and beneficiaries of this incredible legacy that Andrew Carnegie has given a city of our size to be able to have the resources that we have with the museums, with the library system, and with Carnegie Mellon University that we otherwise would not have had it not been for the influence of Andrew Carnegie giving away most of his wealth.
The South Fork Dam, the centerpiece of the tale, was built in 1853. Part of an ongoing program of canal construction meant to boost the infrastructure of Pennsylvania. The dam created Lake Conemaugh as its reservoir. As time passed and the importance of canals and other water systems declined, the South Fork Dam was eventually sold as it declined in importance. Henry Clay Frick, along with other influential members of Pittsburgh's upper class at the Carnegie, purchased the dam in order to found the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club. This club was a resort system meant as a getaway for higher class Pittsburghers, with Lake Conemaugh being the focus for fishing. In order to facilitate the purpose of fishing, the dam itself had a variety of modifications done to its design. The dam was lowered to place a road across the dam, a fishing screen was built to prevent fish from leaving the lake, and maintenance of the dam was allowed to lapse. All of these changes would lead to the event of May 31st, 1889. On May 28, 1889, torrential downpour began over Nebraska and Kansas, causing large storms that swept through the Northeast. On May 31st, the president of the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club, Alliance Unger, noticed that the water level of Lake Conemaugh had risen significantly. He began organizing workers to clear the spillway debris which had built up due to the fishing net. Several attempts were made to warn Johnstown of the impending disaster. However, few were taken with any seriousness. Around 1:30 p.m. on that day, workers gave up and evacuated to avoid the dam collapse. The dam itself broke in an estimated time of 2:55 p.m. and began a flood which raced along the valley that Johnstown is based in. The town of Mineral Point was washed off of the map, and East Kokomo managed to avoid some loss of life due to a warning from a train operator named Don Hess. The flood hit Woodvale, taking up large amounts of barbed wire into the flood just before hitting downtown Johnstown. The flood flattened most of Johnstown, stopping at the stone bridge in Johnstown. The debris picked up by the flood amassed at the Johnstown stone bridge and caught on fire. By the time the flood had ended and the death toll could be counted, over 2,200 people were dead. As an immediate response to the flood, the people of Johnstown rallied to repair the town.
The immediate response here in Johnstown, the survivors of the flood, they got up the very next day and started to go to work to rebuild the city. They got the railroad back up and running within days. They did a wonderful job on taking care of the deceased. The 700 and some souls that were lost that were never identified, they all buried them in individual graves up in Grandview Cemetery. That showed a lot of respect.
Support from outside Johnstown came mostly from the American Red Cross, led by Clara Barton. Support from Pittsburgh and the owners of the South Fork Club was minimal.
Johnstown itself, they did a lot. Help from outside, of course, for a while it was hard to get help in because it was 1889. Communication was a little lax. But there really wasn't a lot of help from, you would have thought, from like the Pittsburgh area, the people that belonged to the hunting and fishing club. There was really no help at all from them. I mean, Andrew Carnegie did come in and he did build the library here. But as far as like a lot of financial aid and that type of thing, no, there wasn't a lot. The survival of the city and the reason the city came back the way it did all lays with the people in Johnstown, the people that survived. That ethic, work ethic, took over and they did what they had to do.
To investigate the causes of the flood, the South Fork Hunting and Fishing Club cooperated with the American Society of Civil Engineers, ACE, to make a report on the dam at the time of its breaking. ACE claimed that the dam would have broken even without the modifications done by the club to the dam. However, the claim is often thrown into question by more recent look at the dam and the extent of the modifications done. This investigation, as faulty as it was believed to be, allowed the South Fork Club to avoid any legal fault for the dam breaking, claiming that the flood was an act of God in court. Despite avoiding any legal repercussions, many South Fork Club members contributed small amounts of aid to Johnstown. Carnegie funded the construction of a library in Johnstown, which eventually became the site for the Johnstown Flood Museum. Despite this, Carnegie's view on those affected by this flood could not have been any more clear.
Well, I think that when you look at the Johnstown flood and you look at that completely man-made and completely preventable tragedy and disaster that never needed to happen and never should have happened, I think in many ways it ties together the opinion of so many people like Andrew Carnegie of social Darwinism, and also of, if you read Andrew Carnegie's Gospel of Wealth, Andrew Carnegie effectively says in that document that he who dies rich dies disgraced. That, of course, is his famous line from that. But he also says that if you give private charity, if you give a handout to somebody, then all you're doing is teaching them to be dependent upon you. That you need to pull yourself up from your bootstraps. That was Andrew Carnegie, and that was definitely his legacy that he's going to establish cultural and educational institutions to allow people to have this Horatio Alger rags to riches story that he did, and that's great. But the other part of that is for Andrew Carnegie, if you didn't do that, then quite frankly, it was your own damn fault. And if that meant that you were in Johnstown and you got flooded out, well, maybe you should have worked harder, and if you had, then maybe that wouldn't have happened to you. And so I think that in many ways, it sort of encapsulates how many people like Andrew Carnegie viewed individuals living in towns like Johnstown, that they were somehow lesser than, not that they deserved what happened to them, but, well, you know, maybe if they had worked a little harder, maybe they would have been at the top of the hill instead of the bottom, literally and figuratively. And I think that in many ways that explains why an event like Johnstown was allowed to happen and why it did happen and why you have such callous arrogance from those that allowed it to occur.
Thank you.